Well, qualifying in the French Grand Prix has just come to an end, and my goodness, you should alert the presses because we've just seen Ferrari actually put in place a masterclass of strategy. Even though it was the most basic strategy possible, they still executed it well. And to be fair, it's probably the best that they've been strategically all season. I know that's not saying a lot, but such has been the depths of low that Ferrari strategies have plunged to in recent times that we have to compliment them for getting the absolute basics right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sports Today. My name is Shane Dias, and we are going to be talking Formula One qualifying and specifically qualifying in the French Grand Prix. Now, obviously, as you guys know, it was, today was quali day in the Paul Ricard circuit. Obviously, again, that's not a circuit which a lot of F1 fans like, but I personally for today found the qualifying session pretty interesting. Obviously, there was the added intrigue of finding out whether or not the Mercedes cars would be able to push and challenge at the front of the grid. That didn't quite happen, but I think they're going to be pretty pleased with how it is that they're placed. We're going to get to that in just a bit, but first, let's talk about the man on pole, Charles Leclerc. Well, Leclerc ended up snapping his losing streak in the last race at Austria, and he's now in a good position to take his second win in as many races because he gets pole position. And quick chat about that lap. Obviously, Ferrari used Carlos Sainz to give Leclerc a tow on both occasions. Understandable in a way. It's not in a sense them saying that okay, Leclerc is the undisputed number one and Sainz is the number two. Not really the case because Sainz has taken an engine penalty. Remember, he's taken an engine penalty in this race, so he's going to be starting from the bottom of the grid. He's going to be starting 20th, come what may. He could have finished on pole. He would have been starting from the back of the grid. So they used him very cleverly, and they used him on both occasions to give Leclerc a tow going forward. The first time around didn't quite work, but the second time slipstream proved very powerful, and Leclerc ended up bettering his time and taking pole position. Verstappen in the end finishes 300ths of a second, 3/10ths of a second behind Max, 300, sorry, of a second behind Max Verstappen. So again, not the ideal place for him to be in, but I think he'll take second position, knowing full well that he could still very well be in competition tomorrow come the race. Of course, bit of a stat for you guys: the last three French Grand Prix that have taken place, that is from the time that Paul Ricard rejoined the Formula One calendar, there were whoever has finished in pole position or started in pole position has ended up winning the race. So obviously there's a bit of history there in Leclerc's favor. But again, remember last year Verstappen started on pole and it was only till the end of the race that he could overtake Hamilton when Red Bull ended up getting their tire strategies right. And tire strategies are going to be important tomorrow because France, like the rest of Europe, having a bit of a heat wave. So I think there's going to be an interesting bit of tire degradation going on. And also don't forget that Ferrari can be unreliable because that engine blows up. So if there's too much heat, that is a little bit of a concern because that does add pressure to the car components as such. So very interesting to see how it is that Leclerc fares tomorrow. But again, him and Ferrari have done everything right that they could, at least in this circumstance. Again, for Verstappen, not quite ideal because I think both Red Bulls looked a little bit off the pace this time around. And as one of our commenters were pointing out, that how come Red Bull has been slow? I think it's circuit specific. We saw this happen a lot of times in the last season as well. That we had certain circuits where the Mercedes were quicker. You had certain circuits where the Red Bulls were naturally quicker. I think this circuit, with the way that it is, it has more medium and slow corners, will suit the Ferraris just that little bit more, and I think that's what we've seen generally speaking this time around. So obviously I think that would be my theory for it. Detailed breakdowns and analysis will have to wait for when exactly it is that the race ends, and that is of course going to be tomorrow, so do join us even then. Of course, we have a little more to discuss. Sergio Perez in third place. Lewis Hamilton, by the way, put in quite the excellent lap towards the end to get P4. His teammate George Russell in P6. Splitting them is Lando Norris of McLaren. So again, remember, the Mercedes cars brought a ton of upgrades to Circuit Paul Ricard. So obviously, I think they would be hopeful that these upgrades would bring them close. And it has, to be fair, brought them just that little bit closer to the front of the grid. Again, Hamilton getting a second row start. Generally speaking, so far this season, the trend with Mercedes has been that their car is a little bit slower when it comes to qualifying, but it is a lot quicker when it comes to the race pace. They're much better in the race pace when it comes to it than they are for quali pace, but they will be happy with where they are. Fourth and sixth, very good. Again, in 7th, you have Fernando Alonso. 8th, Yuki Tsunoda. Carlos Sainz is in 9th, but remember, he'll be starting from the back because he's taken an engine, a new power unit, so going to be getting a massive grid penalty. Same with Kevin Magnussen, who, by the way, also didn't set a time. Magnussen and that Haas looked very, very fast, but Magnussen too has taken a new power unit or certain components in the power unit, so will be starting from the back of the grid. So obviously, in that sense, there'd be a little bit of a mixed day if you're looking at teams for Haas, because again, Mick Schumacher couldn't make it out of Q1. He ended up finishing 19, but he did actually put in a lap that was 6th fastest that ended up getting deleted due to track limits. Bit of controversy there, I would say not really, because again, they've been fairly consistent, the stewards, when it comes to what they consider a breach of the track limits, and that was exactly what happened there. So I think they were happy with the fact that he had just marginally gone over the line. So in that sense, they were pretty happy with judging that decision. So obviously, I don't see anything wrong with the decision. Bit unfortunate for Mick, but remember, he couldn't get out of Q1 at Silverstone as well, ended up scoring points there. So who really knows, you could very well be seeing another Mick Schumacher points finish tomorrow. I wouldn't bet against it. That Haas has serious pace, especially on the straights. You're talking about teams, by the way, who had a mixed showing. Again, I have to mention Aston Martin. Remember, before this weekend, I in my preview yesterday, I had said that, the Astons need to find some pace. They clearly haven't. Lance Stroll starting P17, Vettel in 14th and missing out on Q3 by quite some distance. Yeah, of course, a bit of a disappointing home race in that sense for the two French drivers, because you have Esteban Ocon, who will be starting in P12, and Pierre Gasly in his newly upgraded AlphaTauri. Again, couldn't really do much. 16th place on the grid. Hardly ideal for both the French drivers. But again, I think we're in for an exciting race tomorrow. Personally, I think if race pace, or if history is any indication, and if the Mercs continue to have good race pace, then they might just be challenging for a podium or two tomorrow potentially. Let's see. But obviously, the main battle is going to be between what the Red Bulls do against the lone Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Remember, Leclerc will be waging a bit of a lone battle in that sense, because Sainz is going to be starting from the back of the grid. So how quickly is it that he can cut through the grid and get up there to potentially help his teammate? We're going to see that tomorrow. I personally am a bit pumped for tomorrow's race. Remember, do join us tomorrow post the race as well. In fact, you can join us through the day, because there's a lot of sporting action happening tomorrow. Don't forget, Neeraj Chopra and Rohit Yadav in the finals of the men's javelin throw at the World Athletics Championship. There's, of course, the F1 race. There is also going to be the India-West Indies second ODI. Can the men in blue wrap up the series tomorrow? Well, join us tomorrow, as we are going to be talking sport all through the day, doing what it is that we enjoy doing best. So again, thank you all for joining us in this particular session. Once again, I'm asking you, if you enjoy what it is that we do, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Last but not the least, tap the bell icon so that you know every single time we're going live. Also, don't forget to follow us across platforms. We're also there on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Last but not least, don't forget that if you want the best updates on this sort of on your phone, you should also download the SportsTech app. Thank you all for joining us in this particular video. As always, I've been Shane Rice, and I'm bidding you farewell for today. Bye-bye for now.